Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really foundational contract law case, one that actually challenges our everyday assumptions about business deals. We're looking at Rose and Frank Co. versus J.R. Crompton and exploring the hidden power of carefully chosen words.
If two companies sit down and sign a commercial agreement, is it always legally binding? Instinctively, most of us would say, well, yes, of course. You write it down, you sign it, it's a contract. But as we'll see today, things get really interesting when business partners try to make a massive deal without making a legally enforceable commitment.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one side of this transatlantic deal, we have Rose and Frank Co., an American company, and on the other side, J.R. Crompton, a well-established English manufacturer. We're talking about two massive corporate entities coming together to establish a major pipeline of goods.
The arrangement itself was pretty straightforward. J.R. Crompton manufactured their products over in England, and Rose and Frank Co., well, they were set to act as their sole exclusive agent right here in the United States. It was a classic, high-stakes international distribution setup.
So, how did it all play out? Well, the timeline starts off incredibly cooperatively. They signed the paperwork, and both parties honored the agreement for a while. But eventually, those obligations completely broke down. When the English company essentially stopped holding up their end of the deal, Rose and Frank Co. did what any company would do. They filed a lawsuit for breach of contract, demanding the court enforce the paper they both signed.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is a highly unusual provision, hidden right there in their document. Lawyers called this an honorable pledge clause. It explicitly stated that the arrangement was, quote, not a formal or legal agreement. Think about that. They signed this massive international deal, but deliberately wrote down that absolutely none of it was legally official.
Which brings us directly to the core legal issue the judge had to resolve. Can a standard commercial agreement intentionally avoid being legally binding? I mean, does the serious, high-stakes nature of the business overrule the text, or does the text actually overrule the business? To figure this out, the court had to rely on a fundamental baseline, a legal concept known as presumption. In law, the presumption is that commercial agreements are, by default, intended to be legally binding. Because these parties are conducting serious business, the court starts by simply assuming a real contract was meant to be formed.
So the crucial point is that a legal starting point isn't always the finish line. It can be overridden, creating a rebutted presumption. If there's clear contrary wording right there in the document itself, that text actually holds the power to completely override the default rule.
Breaking down the judge's logic step by step, it goes like this. Step 1, yes, commercial deals are presumed binding. But Step 2, the judge examined that explicit, non-legal wording in their document. And that led to Step 3. The court found there was absolutely no intention to create legal relations. The parties clearly intended to rely purely on honor, not the legal system. The ultimate takeaway for law students and business owners alike is beautifully simple. No intention to create legal relations equals no binding contract. Because the presumption was successfully rebutted, the American company simply could not sue. It leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. The next time you sign on the dotted line, do you know exactly what your words are legally presuming or rebutting? Thanks for joining me for This Explainer.